From the far reaches of space to the darkest places on Earth, join us as we explore the haunted, the cryptid, the creepy, and more. Exposing Reality Radio presents The Spectral Wolfpack Show, your paranormal nightmare, with your host, Alexander Bobolinsky.
Hey guys, and welcome to the show, the only show where my neighbor's dogs seem to make a cameo in every episode. It's pretty awesome. But, alright, it was a bad joke, but anyway, I've been having a good week, guys. We've been doing a lot of filming and different things like the Momo challenge and all that everyone was getting a bunch of hype over. Not to be confused with the Missouri Monster Momo, but it's like a Japanese sculpture and everything, but all that kind of stuff. And I've been excited for this show all week because I've been doing a lot of paranormal work, and this week we're going to be getting back into the Bigfoot world. And our guest tonight is Bill Lancaster of Bilko Productions, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them before I bring him in. Bill and Amy are a husband and wife team living in Southwest Virginia. Together they are a small business owners who also enjoy following cryptozoology and other fringe subjects. With Bill's background in photography, the couple decided to venture into movie making as a way to further engage their interests. Their first film is a documentary called Cultured Bigfoot. It's the result of this inspiration. Bill and Amy hope to use the experience gained from this, their first documentary, to further develop their shared passion into future film projects. And guys, if you check the link in the description, and I've shared it on all of the social medias, Bill gave us exclusive access to his new trailer for his new film, Paranormal Bigfoot, and it's awesome, guys. It gave me chills just watching it. All right, I'm going to bring him in now. Bill, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, sir? Doing good.
Excited to talk tonight. It's gonna be great.
Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. So we first met at the Harlan CryptoCon, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You come over to the table and we chatted for 30, 45 minutes, and yeah, that was our first meeting, yeah.
Yeah, and then we ran into each other at the ECBRO conference, and that's when we recognized we were Facebook friends and everything, and kind of started talking more, and then we set this up.
Yeah, no, that was one of those things where you're like, wait a minute, you're the guy that I talked to at Harlan CryptoCon. And then I've been following Alex Bob and wondering who Alex Bob was, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's you. Yeah, so, yeah, that was pretty cool.
For sure. And I've definitely been, I had been hearing about Cultured Bigfoot, all on Facebook and everything. So definitely the promotions you were doing and everything was working.
Well, I appreciate it. We have zero budget for promotions, so all of ours is through, social media, YouTube, yeah, Facebook, and just other folks sharing. So
that's definitely the way to do it nowadays. It's you got to have your the social media down. As much as I hate it.
Yeah, I know, and I mean honestly, it's one of those things. If I wasn't doing the film at this point, I would probably let it go, but it is just too valuable because I've become a part of a lot of these other groups.
Yep.
That allow me to share what we're doing, and they're interested in it, so that's why they're allowing us to share. And so it just extends your reach. And when you look at something that you post, and the next day it's got views that are like 1,900 views,
mm-hmm.
Well, I couldn't pay Facebook for that many views, so.
Yeah, and I've noticed even when I've dropped like $5 or $20 on views, and It just doesn't seem organic sometimes, and I think that sharing is the way to go with people who are definitely have interest in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So, tell me a little bit about how you got into the cryptozoology and Bigfoot subjects.
Well, I was one of those kids who, and I'm unfortunately probably a little bit older than you by several years. I was one of them kids that used to watch In Search Of when it was not a rerun or, on History Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
And Leonard Nimoy, my favorite Vulcan, was the guy who did the show. And it had the UFOs and Bermuda Triangles and Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and all this stuff. And that was the first time that I can remember knowing about Bigfoot, and it was seeing the Patterson-Gimlin footage on there and them talking about the creature and everything. And so I was interested in it from then. And I was the kid that, when we would go to the library at school and then we would get our little weekly reader, our Scholastic Reader papers, I would order the Loch Ness Monster book and a cool futuristic car book and a UFO book and, that kind of stuff. And so I came about it early and honest. And honestly, I got the love for that kind of stuff because when I was a kid living in Chattanooga, Tennessee area, my dad on Saturday nights would put my mom and my little brother to bed, and I'm literally like first, second grade, and we would sit in there and watch Dr. Shock Theater, which is like Svengoolie or something like that, except that Svengoolie is imitating these guys. I'd sit there and watch The Wolf Man and, and The Blob and The Day the Earth Stood Still and all that stuff with my dad. And so I had an interest in all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, seeing the, $6 Million Man fight Bigfoot and stuff. And it was just something I always was interested in, but never involved in. And as I got older, much later, I ran into the woman that would become my wife, and we found out that we both were setting up late at night. We worked in the restaurant beverage industry when we met, which means a bar. and so we were getting off late at night, and so we would listen to George Norrie and George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM, and we loved that stuff. And so, we were just both really fascinated with all that. And me and her are like old people. We would sit around, after we were married, we'd sit around at night listening to podcasts like people used to do around radios, just like we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
How people would sit around a radio instead of a TV. And then we got to where we were watching every documentary we could find on UFOs and Bigfoot, and then we got David Paulides missing 411 stuff and the obvious Bigfoot connection stuff that he doesn't say, but it's obviously there. And we just got more and more interested in that, and so we had a couple things on our bucket list, and we wanted to go to a UFO conference. And all of a sudden, my wife, this was in early 2016, she said, hey, there's a Bigfoot conference just up the road here. We live in Bristol, Virginia, Southwest Virginia,
mm-hmm.
and there was a Bigfoot conference up at Hungry Mother State Park about 50 miles away from us. And she's like, we ought to go to that. And so I got us tickets, and we went to our first conference. And I reached out like I've done before. I reached out to the guy who was putting the conference on, and I had just upgraded a camera that would shoot, broadcast quality video. And I said, would you mind if I filmed the speakers? And if you give me permission, I'll share it with you. And I don't want anything for it, and you guys can share it. I'll give you a copy. And so I did that, and it was one of those things that, I didn't have any control over the lighting or if somebody stood up in front of me or this, that, and the other. I was just sitting in the audience, but I was able to get some good video and some good audio anyways, and if somebody stood up, I just put a logo up. Well, I put them up in like 5 or 6 different parts,
mm-hmm.
and there was just a big response to this Bigfoot stuff I'd put up. And I mean, I've got a tiny little YouTube channel, Darth Bill 68, and I mean literally tiny, and I got a bunch of views on this stuff. And so me and my wife, as we had been listening to Sasquatch Chronicles and Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio and Dogman Encounters and Confessionals podcast and all this stuff. We'd been listening to a bunch of these things along with Coast to Coast and getting more into, some of the Bigfoot stuff. We had decided, I had said, you know what, I would like to, after going to the first conference, I'd like to make a little movie, a Bigfoot movie. And she's like, well, what do you want to do it on? And I said, well, I don't want to do the chasing glow sticks around in the woods and, shaky camera stuff and thermal stuff and everything, because that's all been done. The thing we were most fascinated about was the community that we found. When you typed in on social media and on Facebook and YouTube, when you typed in Bigfoot or Sasquatch, all these groups showed up. Yeah. And then you would find out they were having conferences and seminars, within 2 or 3 hours of you. And we just got really fascinated with all of that side of it. And that's why we had decided, well, this is our way of being involved, and you're wanting to make a movie, so let's do a movie about the Bigfoot community. And so that's what Cultured Bigfoot is it was called by one of the first guys who interviewed me when he found out about the film. One of the first guys that interviewed me was a PhD out of North Carolina. And he had said, after I described what my film was, he said, you understand, you basically have given what could be a cultural anthropology of Bigfoot is what you've done here. Yeah. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, no, you've done a study of it. And basically we interviewed 23 different folks, from boots on the ground guys up to Cliff and Bobo and Lauren Coleman and Seth Breedlove and Lyle Blackburn. And I mean, just, I was reaching out, being polite, and if somebody wanted to do it, they'd do it. And if they didn't, they didn't. And before we knew it, we had 23 different folks that we had interviewed. And what I thought was going to be a glorified YouTube video turned into a bona fide feature-length documentary, because I had over 6.5 hours worth of footage, and we had to break it down to 81 minutes worth of stuff to hold somebody's attention. This wasn't a Star Wars movie or anything. It was going to be an interview, dialogue-driven documentary, and we put it out there at just a couple trailers, and all of a sudden we started having these big responses from it, and me and my wife started freaking out then, because she's like, oh my God, people are expecting us to put out a real movie. Wow. And so that's what we attempted to do, and this was our first one. And so it was just a self-teaching thing, learning how to do it, taking some skills I'd learned in high school and my amateur photography, and turning it into a passion I wanted to do. I go by Darth Bill 68 and on Gmail, and Darth Bill Lancaster on my Facebook. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and so being a Star Wars fan, you always love movies, and I wanted to make a movie someday, but I knew I couldn't make Star Wars, so yeah, this is it. I tied my passion for Bigfoot, my wife's passion and support for Bigfoot, into a movie, and here we made Cultured Bigfoot.
That's beautiful,
man.
That's
a long answer, Alex.
Hey, that's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful story, and it definitely shows in the film, that your passion for it and everything. Like, I would have never known that was your first film,
It was kind of funny, because we can see every scene. What you're seeing in the film is the 7th cut. We went through 7 cuts, and I understand why they say, filmmakers say a film's never truly done. You just put it out.
Yeah.
And I had one of the fellas that I was interviewing for this new movie. He was shocked to find out that was our first film. He thought we had been making films for years, because he thought the quality of it looked so good. So as much as we see the mistakes, evidently we did pretty good for our first time out. So we're blessed and really appreciate any compliments we get out of it, because it was a year-long project of trying to do it by ourselves, with a lot of networking help and input and advice from some other folks in the field. So
yeah,
but we managed to get it together and make it look decent.
That's awesome, man, and it's great. I bet it was awesome interviewing all those people too.
Oh, man, you can't even imagine. I mean, it's one of those things, and I mean, you've been in the circles enough that you know what I'm talking about. Just like when we were at ECBRO, and Ron Moorhead was there. Well, everybody who's in Bigfoot knows who Ron Moorhead is since '74 and the Sierra Sounds and everything. But to see this guy